Welcome to the SwimSwam podcast. I'm your host, Coleman Hodges. Joining me today, we've got a very special guest. He's the head coach of the now two-time Big Ten women's champions in Ohio State. Today, we're sitting down with Bill Dorenkott.
Sounds good. I like it when you say it like that. So yeah, it sounds good.
You were able to repeat the women's Big Ten championships handily. Your team won by well over 200 points to over 250 points. I mean, it was from the very start. You guys came out swinging, and it seems like you knew what you were doing, and you had a goal in mind. Can you break this championship down for us?
Well, we really didn't talk about winning a championship or repeating or anything like that. Last year was something really, really special. And that had been a long time in the process to really get there. And that year was that year, and it was a special year, and it always will be. And so this was a new year with new challenges. And quite frankly, we felt like our challenge this year was COVID and the pandemic and being adaptable with all that's going on in the world. And quite frankly, I didn't know if we'd have a championship in the fall. And I'd ask myself and our staff, is it worth it, what we're doing here? And the thing that kept me going or motivated or focused was just, we'd come to the pool or we'd go to the weight room, and it didn't matter what we were doing. If it was hard, if it was challenging, the kids were smiling, they were laughing. It was the one place in the world that was normal. And that's why I knew that it was the right thing to be doing. And kind of the further we got along and the closer we got, I thought, you know what, this may actually happen. And we made some decisions, kind of in January and the lead into February to just best position ourselves to potentially be successful at Big Tens. And fortunately things worked out, and it was a good meet. I don't think it was unbelievable. I didn't think we were great. I didn't think we were bad. I thought we were just a whole lot of good. And, I couldn't be more proud of the team, just with everything they've been through, these past 12 months. It's really a testament to those girls.
I mean, obviously, this was a tough year for everyone. It sounds like, Ohio State was no exception. Having to work through this pandemic has been a challenge for everyone. And obviously, especially in the Big Ten, not being able to compete in that fall semester. You said that the goal wasn't to repeat as champions necessarily. Did you all, or do you all still have specific goals for this season as a team?
I think it's disingenuous sometimes when people say, we want to win a championship, or we want to be top 5 or top 10 or be NCAA champions, because at the end of the day, we have no control over that. The only thing we can control is the athletes we put in the pool. And so, are they physically, mentally, emotionally prepared to do their best when the lights are the brightest? So for us, February and March are really important months. And at the end of the day, if we improve, if we got better, that's success. And if you get a ring or a trophy that goes along with it, quite frankly, that's icing on the cake. So I, in the back of my mind, I have some things that I think maybe we can do. But that really takes the focus. We have a saying around here that you don't rise to the occasion, you rise to the level of your preparation. So 99% of our sport is preparing. And so we embrace that. We embrace the process, the grind, whatever you want to call it. And we kind of let the results take care of themselves.
I really like that saying. I think it is very accurate, especially in swimming. I'm not familiar with how other sports prepare necessarily, but yeah, that I feel like that rings very true. And that's interesting that you mentioned you have goals in the back of your head. Does the Ohio State team have a method of setting goals, individually as a team, whether that just be, getting better, hitting times, whatever that looks like?
I think it's very organic how we approach it. So we break our team into what we call zones, and we stole it from Ohio State football. Ohio State football has 9 units. And I asked, when we combined the program, we really followed a similar model. And I said, well, why do they have 9 units? Well, because they have 9 coaches. And so each coach is in charge of their respective unit and the athletes in that unit. And so we have 5 full-time coaches on the swimming side, and we break our team into 5 what we call zones. And so when you're a zone coach, you're responsible for really all aspects of your student athletes' college experience. And so we're blessed to have an unbelievable staff. In COVID, it's tough because a big part of what we do is build connections with our athletes. And so sometimes that's having the athletes over to your house to meet your family, to have dinner, to maybe, do some service opportunities within your zone away from school. COVID, we couldn't do any of that. So everything was virtual, everything was Zoom. And so it really, it presented some challenges for how you do that. So it just meant that the time we spent at the facility was so important. And when we meet with our kids individually, it's not just, what place do you want to go? Do you want to qualify for a meet? Do you want to go a certain time, break a varsity record? It's kind of a holistic approach to, where are you at? What do you want out of the experience? And not just athletically, but academically, social, personal growth. And how can we best support you as you move through that? And I think in this particular year, with the stresses that these kids were feeling on a daily basis, I didn't want swimming to be part of the problem. I wanted it to be part of the solution. And, so we kind of stayed away from that a little bit in terms of times, places, points. I will say this, as a staff, we'll have a dedicated meeting in January to talk about men's relays, women's relays, what we can, what we believe might be possible. And we're usually not too far off. We actually will write them up on a dry erase board, in the office suite, and the kids will sneak in so that they can take a peek at, what the coaches are thinking, because we don't drive that home. It's a fun process.
Yeah. You said you wanted to keep the focus away from times and places, but, looking at how, I'm going to be frank, how dominating the women were at this conference championships. I'd love to hear about, this year in particular, the prep that went into the Big Ten championships, about how you got these athletes ready physically as well as mentally and emotionally, because it seems like, there's not like a few athletes that stand out. There's a lot of athletes who are all contributing and playing their parts.
So I'm embarrassed to say this, but I read the SwimSwam comments, right? And the greatest comment I've seen about Ohio State was somebody said, I don't know any of the names of the kids on that women's team. And that, to me, that makes my heart swell, right? Because I think our staff does an outstanding job of identifying, recruiting, and developing kids that we believe are a good fit for our institution and our program. And so we're very purposeful in going out and seeking those kids. And it's not, who's the tallest or fastest or has 5 stars next to their name. There's a lot that goes into that. I think the second challenge is this. When people look at Ohio State, and be clear, we're blessed. Facilities, budget, resources. It's amazing. We had the same challenges as everybody else this year. We couldn't coach our athletes from March until September. We get our athletes back. I have a couple knuckleheads host a party, right? So we get shut down for 3 weeks, 2 weeks out of the water, and then a week return to play. We get to December. Normally we give the kids a week off. They said, look, we've got a $60 million budget shortfall. We can't pay to have your kids here. So we have to send our kids home for what turns out to be 14 to 17 days. And I'm not crying the blues. We had teams in the league that couldn't see their kids for over 4 weeks. And so whatever came your way, you had to deal with it. And we had the positives and the contact tracing and everything that everybody else had. And we talked a lot about trying to manage kind of your 20 square feet individually and as a program. And I thought we did a pretty good job of it. And when I look nationally and I look at football or basketball or teams that are having success, it's not talent, it's culture. And culture trumps strategy every day of the week. And culture really shows when the chips are down. And quite frankly, these kids have been up against it with COVID and all that it's thrown at them. And so I'm again unbelievably proud of our team and our staff for navigating a pretty tough time. So I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Well, obviously big emphasis on culture there. And if you can give me some specifics of just what the coaching staff preaches and maybe a few instances of how you saw the athletes implement those philosophies throughout the season.
Well, it starts at the top, and that's not with me. That's with our athletic director, Gene Smith. And Gene keeps things pretty simple, and he's genuine, he's transparent. And I'd get on Big Ten calls every week since last March. The swimming coaches would get together. And that wasn't at the behest of the Big Ten. We chose as a conference, as head coach in the conference, get on. And I found myself most weeks sharing some information with my colleagues that their administration hadn't shared with them. And I felt good doing that because I think it helped them. But that's a credit to Gene. And so Gene, when he hires you, he doesn't say, hey, we want you to win rings or trophies or championships. He really tasks us with three things. He tasks us with providing leadership to our programs. Second is creating a culture where great things can happen academically, athletically, and otherwise. And then the third is, again, that idea of identifying, recruiting, and developing talent. And so when you talk about the messages to the kids, it was just kind of keep things simple, right? Press pause when you want to react otherwise. Get your mind right. Step up to the challenge. Be adaptable to the situations. And that means our coaches have to do it. Now, for our coaches, we get on, and we've been on a staff call Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 2 hours for the past 12 months. And that was our way to keep things together. And then the information will kind of disseminate from there, from the respective coaches to the athletes that they're tasked with leading. And, and we have a group of athletes. We don't have captains per se. We have a leadership council. We call it Lead Like a Buckeye. And those kids, they had ups and downs. I mean, they had some times in there where they were in the same spot as their peers. Like, we as coaches, like, man, but at the end of the day, we had great alignment, and it was hard. That was hard.
Is there one or two hard times that stick out to you, and especially how they worked through that?
I think the contact tracing, the dorms are a tough spot to be in. These kids didn't get a quote unquote normal college experience. And my wife and I, we have 4 children. Our oldest 2 are in college. And I saw it in my own kids, being isolated from your peers, having to go to, one of the fun parts of college is going to class, meeting people, and so that to me was the hardest part. And then, we have a director of ops that's really, really good. And he's tasked with really our messaging to our parents. And he did a great job of keeping that messaging consistent, keeping them well informed. And so we really kind of approached it, as for lack of a better way of saying it, really, it was a family-like approach. So I didn't give you kind of one example because, some people were critical of me in December, right? And I had an athlete say, you did these 14 things wrong in COVID. And I said, well, if you only found 14, then you missed a lot, because I made way more mistakes than that. In a normal week, a coach makes 100 decisions. I get it right about 80% of the time. COVID, I had to make 1,000 decisions, and I was probably 50-50, right? Because you're the person there every day, and you're the default expert in the room, and I am not an expert. And so no, it's been a journey.
Yeah, and I mean, again, just bringing it back to in the pool, how do you feel like the athletes were able to they had to handle all this. They had more decisions on their plate, just as you did as a coach. And still, it seems like they were able to get the work in and the results showed that. I mean, how do you feel like your athletes moved through this season effectively in the pool?
Well, we kind of go back to that idea of just controlling what you can control, right? We can't control contact tracing, or if we get paused, or all of those other things. So we try to maximize each week. For instance, in the fall, we couldn't get in the water more than 7 times per week, because in the weight room, we couldn't get our whole team in the weight room at a time. So we prioritized. We felt like strength, conditioning, fitness were really important at that period of time. So we gave up 2 water workouts to pick up 2 strength workouts. And in hindsight, that was the right decision to make. When we got around finals time, we were able to add 2 water workouts, and then we were here for part of December. We'd get up to 9 swims and 3 lifts per week, but that's a small example. Second, we looked forward and we knew that there were going to be some limitations with warm up and warm down at the actual championship. Second is energy, right? So when you have the stands filled and you have the parents in the stands and you're able to have your whole team on deck, you have natural energy in the building. We felt like we were going to have to create some energy that would not be there. So we broke the team down into 2 event groups, and we just went the NC2A format. And 2 days a week, we would go to your day 1 event or day 2 event or day 3 event so that you were with the kids you knew you'd be racing with at the conference meet. And we said, you're going to have to create energy within your events, because as your event is coming in the pool to warm up, the first event of the day is probably leaving the facility. We had 2 lanes and you could only have 6 kids in each lane. So you're limited to 12 people at a time. So you have to be really, really creative. And so, we have leaders for the whole team, but then you had leaders within each respective event. And so we got some momentum, we built energy, we created some opportunities and kind of took advantage of the situation.
Oh, I love that. I mean, that's awesome. That sounds really cool. And I have to ask, how did you, as you came up with that idea, you implemented it, and then as it was playing out, how did you see that affect just the team culture and energy as a whole, not just in those groups?
Well, they saw that it was working, and so for us, really, success around here is a function of 2 things. You got to have both of them. You got to have trust, and then you have performance. Trust comes before performance, and trust for us is built on 3 things: built on connection, character, and competence. Connection's the big piece. And so for us, connection is just taking the time to care, listen, and connect. And when you have that connection, it's easy when you're in the dorms, right? All those people have a great connection. It's easy with your roommates. It's easy with your classmates. But now we broke down even further. Now you have a connection with the 200 breaststrokers, the 400 IMers, the milers. And so now you're not getting up there doing it for yourself. You're doing it for the other 3 girls that are swimming the 200 breaststroke, or the other 5 girls that are swimming the 50 freestyle. And at the end of the day, we believe that swimming's a team sport. And it makes it, I just think it makes it a lot more fun that way.
That sounds a lot more fun. If I was on a swim team, I would want to do that. I'm not going to lie.
Right.
And okay, so it sounds like you guys, I mean, it seems like you guys have it dialed in on a conference level. Again, it was just a blistering performance on your part. Looking forward to NCAAs. I mean, you guys, the women's team won last year, and as you said, it was a different year. It was a special season for the Buckeyes, but you didn't get to see that second championship performance, that full-on payoff. What are you looking for heading into NCAAs, and how do you transition from getting that energy for the conference meet into the NCAA meet?
So we're 17 days out today, and our ladies have done a nice job physically, mentally, emotionally rolling into that next step of preparation. And in fact, we got in yesterday. We did a practice out in Minnesota before we got on our flight, and we did it with the whole team. And I kind of framed it 2 ways. I said, 1, we're going to start the next chapter, which is our NC2A prep. 2, we're going to put some closure on Big Tens, because this is the last time. So yesterday morning is the last time that team will ever be together, ever. I mean, you have a reunion, 10% aren't going to make it. Why? Because life gets in the way. Girls started crying. They were a little bit emotional. I didn't mean to make them emotional, but it was it was a cool thing, right? It was just special. It was nothing hot and heavy. And then, this morning, 5:30, we got back in and did our thing. I'm well aware of what the narrative is, and I'm cool with it, right? We're a conference team. We're built for conference success. We don't have a ton of stars. You asked about goals. I thought last year our women were probably good enough to finish between 8th and 12th in the country. We had a couple stars. Molly Kowal was seated first in the mile. Catherine Demler was going to do some damage. Our relays were solid. We've got more depth this year. We've got better relays this year, and our diving is outstanding. If we put it together, we're going to be pretty darn good. And it starts and ends with relays. Relays is where it's got to happen for our women's team. And so that's where our focus is right now, as a coaching staff, is making sure those relays are ready to go in 17 days.
And I think you came out and surprised some people in those relays at the conference meet. It's like, whoa. I mean, you guys are winning relays, and that was exciting to see. When did the coaching staff put together, like, okay, it's gonna start here with this team this season?
In terms of relays, or just kind of in general?
In terms of relays.
Well, we talk about it a lot as coaches, and Brian Tansel is our director of recruiting on the women's side, and he's done a great job of finding some kids that kind of may have fallen through the cracks, and so we knew, and so I'm just going to put a plug in here. Our incoming freshman women's class next year will be my 31st year coaching at the collegiate level. Our incoming freshmen, that is a special group. They're going to be really, really good. So we're chomping at the bit. No disrespect to the kids that are graduating this year, but it's with that in mind, like, double points. And we were purposeful on the men's side 4 years ago when we combined the program, relays, sprinters, and diving. And now we're starting to fill in the gaps, with some of the distance events and, the 400 IMers and some of the other stuff. And with the women, we started putting the pieces in place. We've got great depth as it relates to relays. We've got a lot of flexibility. There's great competition in those groups. And so I think we've got some more in the tank. I'm not just saying that because I'm supposed to say that. I don't think anybody left the meet satisfied, coaching or team wise. I thought we were pretty good, but I think we had some opportunities where we can get better.
Yeah. Does the prep heading into NCAAs change at all after having last year and kind of, knowing that? I think we all think NCAAs is going to happen, and I think it's going to happen. But, after last year, having not being able to see that data point, did that change how you're approaching NCAAs this year?
No, the challenge is just our meet is a week later than it normally is. So we change our prep a little bit. So I just, I look at yesterday and today as kind of recovering a little bit from the Big Ten meet, especially physically, but the energy and the attitudes this year, maybe attitude's the wrong word. We're in a good spot this morning. Last year we're dragging a little bit. There was a hangover from the Big Ten meet. I don't see it this year, right? It's pretty workmanlike approach. We'll take the day off tomorrow from everything and just, you can call that a personal day, mental day, whatever you want to call it. And then we're really going to break our prep into 3 5-day segments, 15 days total. And each 5-day segment will have a little bit of a different focus in terms of just, getting kids ready in their respective, groups or zones or events to be the best we can be at the NC2As.
So obviously the men and the women are in different groups right now because the men have a meet, the women just finished their meet. When you were breaking them into their conference events, or, when you're breaking them, I guess, into training groups, are the men and the women separated? And if so, does that come at a certain point in the season?
Pretty rarely. Second semester, we create more opportunities to do gender specific workouts, but you get a lot of touches with a lot of different athletes and a lot of different coaches. So you have the zones. So zone 1 is male sprinter, zone 2, female sprinter, zone 3 is kind of your middle distance kids. Zone 4 is built around the 4 IM, and then zone 5 is your real aerobic beasts. 3 days a week, you're going to go with a specialty kick group. So you have underwater specialists, power breaststroke, and then flutter kickers. And you've got coaches dedicated to each of those specialty kick groups. And then on event days, which typically are Tuesday, Thursday, you're going to go with there's always 5 or less events on any given day. You're going to go with a coach. So if it's day 200 butterfly, the 100 butterfly guys and girls are going with Matt Bow. 400 IMers are coming with me. Backstrokers are going with Mike Hume. And what it allows our coaches to do is be ultra focused and experts in just a small subject matter. And I enjoy it. It's a different paradigm. And I didn't kind of realize it until about 4 years ago. And I like it. I enjoy it. And I think the kids enjoy it.
I mean, it seems like if you're going ultra specific, it's mentally it's easier, right? To just, all right, today I'm focusing on this. Tomorrow I'm focusing on that. So I asked that kind of as a prequel to wrap up this conversation. Obviously, you've got the men's meet that starts tomorrow in Columbus. Did the men have the same kind of breaking up into those event groups, and what are you expecting of them in terms of handling this meet in a format that they've never had to handle it before, given all the restrictions?
We just had a team meeting, and the conversation was this. So we had a women's swimming Big Ten group. We had the divers, men and women, at another site for their championship. And then we hosted a 3-session invite for our non-Big Ten kids this past Friday and Saturday. And so I said, what are the lessons learned from each of those different events? And so we kind of talked about it. And then I shared a few things that a 4.5-day, 9-session meet, some of the challenges that will come their way this week, and just managing their energy. And I've said it a couple of times, but when you think about energy, there's 3 types. There's physical, there's mental, and emotional. Physical is the easiest to recover from. Mental is a little tougher. And then emotional is the challenge. And so the idea, 9 times, it's a prize fight, 2 heavyweights. And you don't need to win any one round. You just don't want to get knocked out. So we don't need to be outstanding. We just need to be a whole lot of good for 9 sessions. And, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to live through it. And that's really kind of what we're looking for, is just, we don't need to be unbelievable. We just need to be a whole lot of good.
The last question here, because I forgot this change was made. You guys switched to the 4.5-day format instead of the 3.5-day format. Were there any major tweaks that you had to do on your end as a coaching staff to prep the athletes for that extra day of competition?
I think just, again, going back to managing kind of emotional energy, and by Saturday, the tank was a little bit empty, and I want to say this in a good way. We had a bit of a lead, and I thought we were a little bit flat Saturday morning, Saturday evening. Teams that were still duking it out for places had great Saturday morning sessions. And I don't envy them. My light out, if I don't move enough, my light goes off every now and then. So just ignore that in the background. But no, it took a toll. It just, our coaches as well, they were dragging a little bit today, but nothing a little caffeine can't fix, right?
Do you feel like you will be able, you personally, will you be making an adjustment, having been through that first 4.5-day meet into the second 4.5-day meet?
So Coleman, I was pretty mindful, and I'll never get accused of having wisdom, but I was mindful last week. I coached from the stands last week because there were limitations in terms of how many people you can have on deck, and being 30 years into this, I understand that this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so it's no one meet. And we've got women's Big Tens, men's Big Tens. You've got the NC2As, the NC2As. And I have a responsibility to our staff, our coaches, our program, to be really good each of those meets. And so I personally got to make sure I'm not too high, I'm not too low. And so I feel really good. And I told our staff, I said, look, just, you guys take care of the women this week. I am all in with the men. I told my guys, before our team meeting today, I said, look, I'm all yours this week. I'm like, oh, great. You sure you don't want to go back with the women?
Nice. So that's good insight. I love that. Well, Bill, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and chat today, especially because, your meet starts in 26 hours or so. Any parting thoughts before we sign off today?
Just, I want to say thank you publicly to what I would call the team behind the team. And we as coaches sometimes get more credit than is deserved. In this case, my staff did a great job, but our strength coach, our athletic trainer, our AD putting the pieces in place, so really, it's a sense of humility and gratitude to look back and say, man, we actually got to compete. And that was pretty cool.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week.
You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.